Hi guys, Yacca here. So we're heading up part 8 of the card review for Scholomance Academy, and this time we'll be talking about the remaining cards for Mage and Rogue, which also share the dual class between them. So let's head on into the review. The first one we'll talk about is a dual class card between Shaman and Mage called Trichtoten. It's a 2-mana 0/3 totem, which states at the end of your turn, so the turn that you play this takes effect, you cast a random spell that costs 3 or less, so 0, 1, 2, or 3. So this one is kind of tricky to evaluate. You need to know the amount of spells that you have available. It's because it's across all classes. I looked it through, and there's a bunch of cards, a bunch of spells available that this one can throw. There's some that will hurt you, some that will do nothing, and a bunch of cards which really furthers your game plan. Since I looked through, and it seems like roughly around 3/4 of the card, so 3 out of 4 potential cards, are either not doing much or nothing, or assisting you. And there's around 1/4 which will probably hurt you. But still, it's more skewed towards a benefit than it is a drawback. I rated high this one because I think it supports a Shaman Totem build, which we have seen already. But this is a little bit more of a swingy card, but I think it's good enough to include in that archetype as well. It might be some nutty games, but still, I think with 75, maybe even 80% chance of you getting something favored out of the Trichtoten, I think that's actually just good enough to run in a Totem Shaman build. For Mage, it's probably not going to do all that much. But for Shaman, I think it's going to be okay. So the rating, the star rating, the 4 stars, is definitely skewed towards a Shaman focus. For Arena, well, it's not going to do something completely great, and probably not going to be a 2-drop, but you might have this one being dropped a little bit later in the game because you get a spell out of it as well. You might have card draw, you might drop secrets and stuff like that. I think it's going to be an okay card. It's not going to break the game in any way, but it's going to be alright. Sometimes you want these swingy cards in the arena because you need that edge over your opponent. So it might be too much, but we'll see. 4 stars in Constructed and Arena. Then we have Cram Session. It's a 2-mana card, 2-mana spell, which draws you a card. Draw mechanic. With the upside that this is improved by spell damage. So if you have spell damage +1, you draw 2 cards, +2, you draw 3 cards. And for the Cram Session to be good, you need to have 1 spell damage. I am very uncertain that a spell damage mage will happen, but even if it does not, it is kind of viable to think that you would want some spell damage minions in your deck. And with this in mind, I think this has a good chance to be played, because you just need 1 spell damage minion for this to be better than Arcane Intellect, because there's 3 mana, draw 2 cards. So whatever your deck's game plan will be, if there's spell damage in there somehow, even though it's not revolving around spell damage, then Cram Session is going to be good. And that's why I rated 4 stars for Constructed. The spell damage minions for Arena, looking towards that side, are going to be a little bit more rare and inconsistent, and therefore I can't really rate it all that high, but it's going to be an okay draw mechanic. And whenever you do hit the spell damage minions and you drop the Cram Session, it's really going to be great, generating a bunch of value for Arena. But more inconsistent there, so therefore I only rated 3 stars for the Arena. Then we have the Firebrand. It's a 3 mana, 3/4 stat lines, good stats for a mage minion, a common one. And it has the spell burst effect that you deal 4 damage randomly split among all enemy minions. With cards from the past where you've seen an effect similar to this, even though it didn't have spell burst at that point in time, this effect was really powerful. This is a little bit worse because it was less damage, but it was each and every time you drop the spell, and the damage could go phase as well. So this is kind of a little bit worse. I still think it's going to be strong enough to see play, even though it does something different from the last one. But the stat line on this one is also really great. So if there's kind of this spell-focused kind of mage, this is good for early game control of the board, and therefore I think it's going to be strong enough to find a suit in a deck somewhere. And for Arena, just a crazy strong card, and the effect behind the spell burst is going to be so crazy in Arena. And it's not something that can go, because in Arena you don't want the damage to go face. You want to attack the minions. The narrow scope in Arena is actually a benefit for the card. A crazy good card for Arena. Draft it, and you're going to see it a lot. This might break. I'm talking about what breaks the game. This might break the game for Mage. I'm not sure, but it's going to be a very, very strong Arena card. I talked a bunch about the spell damage Mage deck that might not work and stuff like that. This doesn't mean that's going to be a spell-focused mage deck without that's not going to work, or being without spell damage, and then you just still run a bunch of cheap spells and stuff. And with that in mind, I actually think this card here does have a viable chance of seeing play. This one has spell burst that you summon 2 mana worms. Again, with the spell burst effect, I think it can actually transition into the mana worms as well. I'm not 100% certain there, because mana worms, they grow each and every time that you play a spell. I don't think it's kind of with the spell burst. They need to see the start and end of a spell before they grow. So when they are generated and when they're summoned through this, I don't think they get a buff from that initial spell that activates the spell burst. I am not 100% sure. I haven't checked up all the facts on that one, but it seems like if it follows the same logic around spell burst, which has been confirmed, then that's kind of it. Either way, if you run a bunch of low-cost spells in order to control board, go face, and all this kind of stuff, well, still the mana ones is really good. So for 5 mana, maybe a 6th one. So for 6 mana, because you need to activate the spell burst, you get what is that? 12 points of stats for potentially 6 mana. That's really strong. It lets you develop a board right away, and it can actually grow the board each and every time you play a spell. Definitely, I think it's a strong card. It has a good suit for a constructed where you can do specific deck building activities that supports this. And just from a stats point of view, if you look towards the Arena, then that's just really powerful. And if you just perceive this as a 5-drop, yes, it is somewhat understated, but it's somewhat easier to get access to spells in the Arena. Like I mentioned a couple of times, half the time you're on the coin, that's a spell. So it is a little bit easier to get spell burst a little bit more consistently within the Arena. anyway, I do think it's going to be a 4-star card because it's going to be doing a lot. It spreads some damage around, spreads the damage out on the board. It's something that grows whenever you do use spells and stuff like that. So a really strong arena card you don't mind picking at all. For the 5 cost spot, this is definitely a good card for arena. Then we do have another spell damage related card. That is a dual class spell card, which costs 1 mana, and it's a studies card, so it discovers a spell damage minion. And the next minion, as with all other studies, it's reduced in reduces the cost of 1 for the next minion with spell damage that you drop. So I rate this rather low on the constructed side, based on the idea that even in a spell damage deck, you just much rather run the spell damage minions that you want instead of trying to discover it. So you need to get that. You need to have a spell, have the spell. You need to play it, and you need to find the one out of all the neutrals and the class that you're, whether it's shaman or mage. You need to find the card that you need. Oh, it's not offered to you, and all this kind of stuff. So you're much better off just running the card and constructed. That's a little bit more skewed towards the arena because you can't choose what you put in. The spell damage is good. Spell damage is actually a quite good effect in arena, which because spells are good, which screws up the math of your opponent. But if you have spell damage on top of that, your opponent might foresee some specific plays with specific spells that does specific things. But if you have spell damage on top of that, then you have one more challenge to foresee what your opponent will be doing. Having this is definitely great. I definitely think this is going to be a 4-star card in arena because the effect is a lot higher there. And it also goes back to saying, well, even though I say that it doesn't go in a constructed deck, it's not that it's not powerful. The power level of the card is still high, and also why I rate it so high in arena. Brain freeze. Just kidding. But that's actually the name of the card. It's a 1-mana spell called Brain Freeze. And what the card does is that it freezes a minion, and it has a combo effect because it's a mage and rogue dual class card, dual class spell, and it has the combo effect that it also deals 3 damage to it. So if you play the spell before, then you also deal 3 damage and freeze the minion. So for mage, there are already right now 1-cost spells which freezes target, freezes minions. I'm not sure it's going to be that viable there, but as I indicated with 4 stars, I do see a good suit for it, and that's good actually because it's a low-cost spell, and it can be used in Rogue as well. And that's some of the things that Rogue want to do. They really want to tempo stuff, and if they just put a pause on your minions and then just do their game plan, that's what they wanted to do. And they've had some cards which does this through Sap and also the Blackjack Stunner. I think that's the name of the 1-mana 1/2 minion, which if you have a secret pushes cards back to your hand. This doesn't push it back, but essentially just make sure that you can't use that card unless it's a taunt in any active way on your next turn. So the freeze effect for Rogue is really powerful. So much that I do think that this will find a place in many Rogue decks. We'll see how powerful it is. I'm not sure it's going to be strong enough to find a good suit in a mage deck, but still, I based the star rating out of focusing on Rogue then. For arena, many times it's a cheap spell. It lets you, well, hold off. You don't get to dictate the trade. You are standing still this turn, and then you, on your next turn, maybe if you drop a minion together with Brain Freeze, then you get to dictate the trades. and that works both for mage and rogue. So therefore, it's kind of the same within arena. So I think it's a strong card. It can also be used as kind of a early game removal, which is also a really powerful thing to do with a card in the arena. Definitely 4 stars in both game mode. It is a strong card for both. Then we have another dual class spell called Potion of Illusion, which is an epic card. It's a 4-mana card which takes the board in front of you, so add 1/1 copies of your minions to your hand, and those minions will cost 1. So this is very much like a combo setup or a turn, or that you want to use the minions that you have. They have powerful battle cries or death rattle effects and stuff like that. But with the cards revealed and the stuff we have already, it's not kind of the build for it right now. If it's going to be there, it's going to be in Constructed. That's why I rated 3 stars for Constructed. Because stuff like this always surprises. Sometimes there's a fit for it. And we'll need to see how strong it's going to be. I just really can't see the specific use case for it at the moment in either Rogue or Mage. So not too likely to see play. It's not that it's not strong, it is, but just not likely to see play. And for arena, it's kind of worse. It's what you really want to do is continuously push the tempo. Potion of Illusion is something you can only use when you're already winning. When you're already winning, you're winning. So this notion around Potion of Illusion in arena, it's not going to be that great. It's going to be the very narrow use case where, well, the Potion of Illusion could be good here, but it's great that it is in the spell pool that you might discover, because it might be that you, or in this specific situation, out of discover from a lackey or whatever, then Potion of Illusion is really great. And then that's perfect. It's in the pool. It's just not something that you right off the bat choose in your draft. So a little bit lower stars rating for arena. Then we have the dual class legendary for mage and rogue. It's a 5-mana card with a stat line of 2 attack and 1 health, and that's really bad. But it does have a battle cry, where this one summons 2 random 5-cost minions. You don't get to discover them or choose them. But then there's an effect that allows you to choose one of those minions. And the minion that you choose will be destroyed whenever it takes damage. Just 1 damage or 10 damage, it doesn't matter. It'll die instantly. And the other one is going to be strong. This is kind of interesting. I rated it somewhat high, also because I looked through the 5-cost range of cards, and they're quite good. However, you need to consider, for instance, Dandy Sparrow is a 5-cost card, and that's also in the pool, and that's not a great summon. But then you would just put Dandy Sparrow, if that is summoned, to the one that takes 1 damage. Well, hey, she has 1 health, so either way, right? So many times it's gonna be quite obvious what you've chosen as the mirror image that will die with just 1 damage. But you can also mind game it a little bit if they're not completely skewed in their power level, the 5-cost minions that you draw. And generally the run-of-the-mill 5-cost minion is great, and there's no other effects other than you need to play this from hand in order to satisfy the effect. So I think there's a good chance it'll see play. The power level is good, it's strong, and the stance evaluation is really around trying to figure out, will the card see play in the upcoming expansion? And I think it's strong enough that it'll find its place in one or more decks for after the release of the new expansion. For the arena side, it's even more powerful. Also because you do not have that many removal minions and spells and all this kind of stuff. It's a very board-centric kind of game mode, and that's really what Jandy Sparrow is doing, really pushing the envelope on getting on the board and doing some stuff, providing a broad board. The 5 stars, even though you're not going to see it a lot, 5 stars in Arena. Alright, so we have a new secret for Rogue. It's a 2 mana card, like all other Rogue secrets are. And it states that at the end of your opponent's turn, add copies of cards they played to your hand. And I think right now we do have a viable Rogue deck revolving around secrets. And this just suits that game plan perfectly. Because it does something completely different from the other ones. If you look at Bamboozle, it has something to do with attacking minions. Fair enough, your opponent can test that. And Plagiarize doesn't really revolve around that one specifically. But the other two are either Ambush, where your opponent will be playing minions, maybe to check, is it Ambush? Well, it's not. Okay, then I play a bunch of minions, and I don't play any spells. But then Plagiarize activates, and you get a bunch of minions instead. It could also be that you the other one is Dirty Tricks, so your opponent plays a spell. Okay, I played a spell, Dirty Tricks doesn't proc, so it's probably going to be Ambush. I don't have a strong board. I'll use spells instead, and they play a bunch of spells and tries to clear your board and use spells to generate minions and stuff like that. And then towards the end of the turn, Plagiarize activates, and you get a bunch of spells. It is, and your opponent cannot not play spells, and you want to use your full amount of mana each and every turn. The only real viable play around is that you play a low-cost minion or spell, and then use the rest of your mana to hero power and to develop weapons and stuff like that. That's the only kind of counter to this, where you can still use your mana to be efficient without giving you that much value. It's really a crazy good card, and I think even why I also rated 4 stars. When you're on the ladder, you can't specifically see. In tournaments, it's a different story, but you can't see if it's not a secret rogue you're up against. So you just drop Plagiarize, and you're bound to get something out of that. Some increased value, some increased more spells against classes that you don't usually have access to, the stuff that they throw down to the board or play spells. I think this is going to be crazy strong and included in a lot of rogue decks because it's bound to get some value. And for 2 mana, if your opponent is going to play around that, they can't really do that because at least you'll get a 1 or 2 mana spell on return. So it's, where I see it, really powerful. And that goes for both game modes. It can be a standalone card that doesn't need a bunch of synergies, and therefore it's strong. And when it's strong, it's also strong in Arena. And therefore I rate it the same way for both game modes. Then we have a really neat self-sharpening sword. There you go. This one, for 3 mana, you would say that a good weapon for 3 mana will give you 6 points of damage. This gives you 10 points of damage. So on turn 1 you can attack for 1, the next turn you can attack for 2, and then for 3, then you're already on 6. And you would still have the last hit for 4 points of damage left. That's 10 points of damage. Actually a strong and powerful card. But I rate it low in Constructed due to the fact that there isn't really a viable weapons rogue build at the moment. I think it's great that it's there, and definitely think it's great for arena, as you can see. But it needs 4 turns to deliver those 10 points of damage, so it's not really that aggressive. So it's gonna be towards turn 7 that you develop the last 4 points of damage if you consistently hit with it each and every turn. So it's not really aggressive enough, you could say, when you compare against some of the other cards that is not hero power, that is not the hero power for rogue. But for arena, this is definitely strong. You use this one to control the board and put in some chip damage to minions, and you might do some trades. You hit something and then you trade something, and then that's enough to kill off something. And it just lingers around for a for a long time, and your opponent will try to play around and have suboptimal turns and stuff like that. Definitely a strong arena card, and you're probably going to see it somewhat because it's only a rare card. Then we have a rogue card, a rogue minion, a 3 mana 3/3. That's the greatest of stat lines. We do have stronger 3-drops at the moment, with the effect that whenever this is in play, your weapon has +2 attack. As you can see, that weapons rogue is completely pushed to the side. I only rated 1 star. It has nothing to do with the power level of the card. I just evaluate that there's, in my mind, no chance that the Vulpera Toxin Blade will be a played card in the upcoming expansion. However, for Arena, just a lingering +2 attack, like a perma buff to your weapon. So on turn 1 you do whatever, you might do something, you might not. On turn 2 you equip your dagger, and then on turn 3 you drop this one, and then you take care of whatever 2-drop your opponent dropped, and you're a bit of a leg up already on the next turn for the 4-drop. Such a powerful effect that can curve into using your hero power even more efficiently, and a +2 attack. That's really good. So for arena, I go all out on a limb and say this is a 5-star card. For rogue specifically, you really want this. That's so powerful and allows you to swing games in your favor. And definitely it's going to be something when you can manage to do this with the cards you drafted, but also just playing this, it's gonna feel amazing for arena. Then we have a rogue minion, a 4 mana 4/4, shifty sophomore. It has stealth, but it also has spell burst that you add a random combo card to your hand. And we actually got introduced a lot of combo cards to here, so this is actually a significant effect, this spell burst. And on top of that, it is stealth, and we do have a viable stealth rogue build at the moment. So it seems like we can do some. You can trade around with some cards. So at least towards when we start with the new expansion, this is probably going to be a very fast include in stealth rogue initially, just when the expansion hits. So the ones that are still playing with stealth Galacron rogue, well, you will have to consider or even just include shifty sophomore because I really think it's that strong. Again, the spell burst in arena, it's probably going to trigger, and if it's just a 4 mana 4/4, it's not all that great. It's stealth, yeah, it's nice, you get to dictate stuff, but the spell burst is really what makes this a really powerful card. And I do think the arena is definitely strong enough to manage this minion. It's gonna be a powerful arena minion. It's also going to be a powerful constructed minion. Definitely really good. 4 stars in both game mode. Then we have a dual class spell for rogue and warrior, and it's cutting glass or cutting glass. So either you are cutting the class, like skipping out, or you learn to cut in the class. Well, essentially it's a card draw card. For 5 mana, you draw 2 cards, and this card will cost 1 less per attack of your weapon. Right now, the lowest. This is not going to be all that great, so I'm evaluating this based on the warrior approach of drawing weapons. Right now, for a warrior to draw weapons, you need to damage your own board, you need to do the battle rage and stuff like that. And that can be okay, but it's just sometimes it feels like you're running out of that option. You have your board wiped and you don't have damaged minions or whatever might be the case. Then you don't really get the most benefit out of battle rage. There's a lot of weapons being run in Paladin at the moment. In Warrior at the moment. And that's probably strong enough to push into getting that card draw. That's for Rogue, probably not all that strong, and for Warrior, really strong. Looking towards Arena, I rated somewhat lower again. The chance of you drawing cards and based, and you get this discount based on you having weapons, is much lower in Arena. You might get a bunch of good cards, of course, but a bunch of good weapons. But still, you probably need to in some instance try to evaluate cutting class as a 5 mana draw 2 cards, and that's just bad. So it's a little bit less important, or a little bit less significant in Arena. It can be, but probably not going to be that use case in Arena. But for Constructed, yes, definitely powerful. You can choose what you put in your deck, and seems like it supports a good game plan of what Warrior is already doing. So, 4 stars in Constructed and 2 stars in Arena. And then we're finishing off Rogue with a dual class card for Rogue and Warrior, and I think this is such a powerful card. It's kind of Assassinate and Execute, that was the name of it, mixed together in one card. So if you have a damaged minion, it can be your own. I don't think that's even a possibility for Execute. It can be your own or your opponent's. You can destroy a damaged minion. You just need to put 1 damage into a minion, and then Curse at 3 mana lets you destroy it. But you could also combo it using a low-cost card of any type, minion, spell, whatever be the case, and you destroy any minion. So it's, for instance, for a 0 or 1 mana spell, that's 4 mana. Then you can destroy whatever minion you like on the board. It's probably going to be some kind of play in some of the control decks. So it's not going to be, maybe even it will be in some of the, if there's an aggressive warrior, aggressive rogue build, just having this cheap heart removal, that might be good enough to run 1 or 2 off, because it really lets you go through your opponent's board if there's taunts and whatever in the way. So let's see, it might be that we could use it there as well. And just with that in mind, that use case, that's why I rate it so high and give it 5 stars. And still, it's so easy also to do this and trigger the effect. It doesn't require you to sit with dragons or beasts or have a weapon equipped or whatever. You just need to play cards, and that's why it's also crazy powerful in Arena. Chorus is competing with other cards, but for Arena it's really powerful. But I still think this is a dual, both game modes, 5-star rating for Chorus. This is one that we will have in the decks of those two classes going forward. So that concludes part 8 of the card review and sums up the classes of Mage and Rogue. And there's some really powerful cards in there. I'm really looking forward to playing with them and see what we can make up of this new meta that we're coming into. But it looks really crazy. So stay tuned. Let's see the rest of the cards going forward. And thanks for watching, guys.